No one noticed the shy alien princess until a human took her hand. Crowds of people moved in the marketplaces, and hovering vehicles zipped above like swarms of glowing insects. Yet inside the palace, the world felt entirely different, quiet, solemn, and carefully controlled. Here, every step, every word, every glance mattered. Princess Lysara moved through these halls almost invisibly. Even though she wore the simple silks of royalty, her presence did not command attention. She kept her gaze low and her steps soft, blending with the servants and attendants who hurried past. The courtiers, with their polished manners and practiced smiles, rarely noticed her at all. To them, she was just the quiet girl in the background, someone who would one day rule but was not yet part of the important decisions. Lysara did not mind the invisibility entirely. She had always been shy, preferring books, music, and the study of her people over conversations filled with politeness and empty praise. She loved the quiet corners of the palace gardens, where the glowing flowers smelled faintly of honey and the soft wind carried whispers of distant mountains. Here she could think freely, dream without judgment, and imagine herself as more than a princess who had to smile on command. Today, however, felt different. The palace was filled with unusual energy. Word had spread that a human delegation would arrive to negotiate a new trade agreement. Humans were rare visitors on Violia, and most of the palace staff were preparing to impress them with grand speeches, exotic foods, and polished etiquette. Lysara watched it all from behind a large pillar in the main hall. The courtiers bustled around her, their voices loud and eager. She could feel the tension in the air, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. But for Lysara, the moment was uncomfortable. Humans were strange, unpredictable, and she had no experience speaking to them. She had read about them in the palace archives, but reading was not the same as meeting them face to face. As the doors to the hall opened, a hush fell over the crowd. Lysara held her breath and stepped slightly aside, hoping no one would notice her. That was when she first saw him, Captain Nathan Reyes. He moved differently from the Violians. He did not bow too low, nor did he stiffly salute. His posture was relaxed but respectful, and his eyes seemed to look at people rather than past them. As he walked through the hall, he smiled warmly at the attendants and servants, nodding in acknowledgement without the slightest hint of superiority. Something inside Lysara stirred. She had never seen anyone move among her people without judgment, without expectation. And yet, he belonged to a species she had only read about in textbooks. The very idea made her heart race. Nathan's attention, however, was not on her. He was greeting the Violian ministers, shaking hands and exchanging polite words. The room buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the faint hum of hovering lights. Lysara retreated further behind the pillar, thinking perhaps it was better to remain unseen. Still, she could not tear her eyes away. Humans, she thought, seemed different. There was something honest about the way he spoke, something that made her feel like she could exist in the same space without fear or expectation. She did not understand it fully, but the feeling was powerful. As Nathan moved through the hall, a young attendant accidentally dropped a tray of sparkling drinks. Glasses shattered, and the clatter drew everyone's attention. Courtiers gasped, and the attendants froze in panic. But Nathan simply bent down, carefully helping the attendant pick up the broken pieces. He did not scold, nor did he look angry. Instead, he whispered something that made the attendant smile nervously. Lysara's curiosity grew. She wanted to know more about this human who did not seem concerned with rules or appearances. She wanted to understand him, to see how he moved through the world so freely. By the end of the formal greetings, the human delegation was led to the palace's guest quarters. The courtiers followed, chattering excitedly about his manners and the potential benefits of his visit. Lysara remained behind, wandering into a quieter part of the palace. She found herself in the library, a place filled with tall shelves and soft golden light. Dust motes floated in the air, and the scent of old paper and ink was comforting. She pulled a chair near a window and sat down, opening a book about human culture. She hoped it would help her understand him, the way humans thought, the way they spoke. She wanted to imagine conversations she could never have allowed. Hours passed. The sky outside shifted from the bright glow of twin suns to the soft pink of dusk. The palace grew quieter, the earlier excitement fading into routine. Still, Lysara could not forget him. She thought about his smile, the gentle way he had helped the attendant, the ease with which he had moved among people who often looked down on others. That evening, the palace prepared a formal dinner in honor of the human delegation. The grand hall was decorated with glowing tapestries, floating lanterns, and tables of rare delicacies. Courtiers mingled, showing off their finest manners and trying to impress the visitors. Lysara, however, remained in the shadows, quietly observing. From her hidden vantage point, she watched Nathan greet the ministers with a firm handshake and a kind word. He laughed at their jokes politely but not forcedly. He asked questions, listened intently, and seemed genuinely interested in their answers. Lysara realized that humans, or at least this human, had a quality her people often lacked: the ability to see value in others, no matter their rank. A small sound behind her made her jump. One of the palace attendants, a boy named Riven, looked nervously at her. "Princess, the dinner is ready," he whispered. "Shall I?" "No, Riven," she said softly, shaking her head. I just want to watch for a while." Riven nodded, sensing there was nothing more he could say. He backed away quietly, leaving Lysara alone. As the dinner began, she noticed something remarkable. Nathan, without fanfare or show, treated everyone with respect. He did not seek attention. He did not demand the best seat or the most luxurious dish. Instead, he shared stories, laughed with servants, and asked questions that made people smile genuinely. Lysara felt something shift inside her. For the first time, she realized that being noticed was not always about grandeur or ceremony. Sometimes it was about small acts of kindness, courage, and attention. When the formal speeches ended, Nathan glanced toward the shadows near the library entrance. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Lysara's heart skipped. He did not look away, nor did he frown in confusion. He simply nodded, a silent acknowledgement that he had seen her. It was a small gesture, almost invisible to anyone else, but to Lysara, it was everything. For the first time, she felt that perhaps she did not need to hide. Perhaps there was someone in the galaxy who could see her as she was, without the weight of expectations pressing on her shoulders. The night continued, but Lysara remained by the window, watching the stars and thinking of the human who had, in a single glance, made her feel noticed. She did not know what would come next. She did not know if he would remember her in the morning, or if this moment would vanish like a dream. But she felt a spark, a tiny, fragile hope that life could be different, that she could step out of the shadows, and that maybe, just maybe, she could reach out to someone who saw her for who she truly was. And so, Princess Lysara, the shy and invisible royal, began to imagine a world where she did not need to hide. A world where her heart could open, and perhaps where she could find a friend, someone who would take her hand and walk beside her not as a princess, but as a person. For the first time in her quiet life, she felt seen. The next morning, the palace was alive with activity. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, casting long shadows on the polished marble floors. Servants hurried along the corridors, carrying trays of food, stacks of documents, and messages that had arrived overnight. Courtiers adjusted their robes and whispered urgent words about trade negotiations and human customs. Princess Lysara moved quietly through the palace halls, as she always did, her hands clasped lightly in front of her. Her thoughts were still on the human visitor, Captain Nathan Reyes. She could not stop thinking about him, about the way he had smiled, about the calm kindness in his eyes. The memory of his glance from the night before warmed her in a way she had never felt before. But today, she had a plan. She would leave the formalities behind and seek a moment alone, somewhere she could think freely. Somewhere, perhaps, she might see Nathan again. The palace gardens, with their glowing flowers and softly humming lights, were her refuge. She walked along the winding paths, enjoying the fresh air and the gentle sway of the luminous plants. The gardens were empty, save for the occasional gardener tending to the strange, exotic plants. Lysara felt a sense of peace here, a sense of being herself without the eyes of hundreds of people on her. As she turned a corner near the flowering vines, she almost collided with someone. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said, stepping back. "No harm done," came a familiar voice. It was Nathan. He had somehow found his way to the palace gardens alone and was examining the strange plants with a curious gaze. His human eyes widened slightly as he touched a flower that glowed faintly in the morning light. Lysara felt her heart race. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said softly. Nathan smiled, a gentle and unassuming smile that made Lysara feel at ease. "The palace is large," he said simply. I thought I might explore a little. These gardens, they are unlike anything I have ever seen. You like them? She asked, stepping closer. The air seemed to hum around them, the soft sense of flowers filling the quiet space. I do, he said, looking around. They are peaceful. I like peaceful places. Lysara nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had always thought of herself as someone invisible, someone small and shy in a world of loud voices and high expectations. But here, with him, she felt seen. Not as a princess, not as someone to impress, but as herself. They walked together along the winding paths, speaking softly. Lysara told him about the gardens, about the glowing flowers, the strange vines, and the birds that hummed melodies only at dawn. Nathan listened intently, his eyes bright with curiosity. He asked questions, not to test her knowledge, but because he genuinely wanted to understand. You know so much, he said after a while. Most people would never notice these details, even if they walked here every day. Lysara looked down, a soft blush rising on her cheeks. I notice things because no one else does, she admitted. People are usually too busy to see small details. I like noticing them. Nathan reached out, pointing to a flower that pulsed gently with light. This one, he said, it's beautiful. I wouldn't have seen it if you hadn't pointed it out. Lysara smiled faintly. For the first time, someone appreciated what she appreciated, not for appearance or status, but simply because it mattered. They wandered further into the garden, passing a small pond where the water reflected the twin suns. Nathan knelt briefly, touching the water's surface. It's so clear, he said. You can see everything below it, and yet it's calm, peaceful. Lysara crouched beside him. It's like life, she said softly. If you look too quickly, you miss so much, but if you take the time, if you really notice, you can see the world clearly. Nathan looked at her, his gaze steady. You see the world clearly, he said. I think most people could learn from you. Her breath caught. No one had ever said anything like that to her. She wanted to say something, to respond, but her voice felt small, trapped in her throat. Nathan seemed to understand, for he reached out and lightly took her hand. The touch was simple, gentle, but it carried a weight neither of them could explain. Lysara's heart raced, and she felt a courage she had never known. She looked at him, and he smiled, reassuring her with his calm presence. Thank you, she whispered, for noticing me. Nathan's eyes were kind. You're hard to miss if you take the time. They walked a little longer, hand in hand, sharing stories of their worlds. Nathan told her about Earth, about its forests, oceans, and cities. He spoke of people who built great things, who created art, and who sometimes fought but also helped one another. Lysara listened, fascinated. She realized that humans were not so different from Virelians. They hoped, they dreamed, they struggled. But Nathan had a way of showing the best parts, the parts that inspired courage and kindness. As the sun rose higher in the sky, a soft alarm sounded from the palace. Courtiers began to appear, reminding the delegation of formal meetings and discussions. Nathan looked around, realizing they were in danger of being late. I should go, he said reluctantly. Lysara's hand tightened slightly around his. Wait, she said softly. Please stay a moment longer. Nathan looked at her, then smiled, and for a second time seemed to slow. All right, he said, just a moment longer. They found a quiet bench near a fountain that shimmered with crystal water. Sitting together, they watched the soft movements of the water and listened to the gentle hum of the garden. Lysara felt something shift inside her. She realized that she could trust this human. She could share herself, even the parts that others ignored or overlooked. You're different from everyone else, she said quietly. Nathan tilted his head, curious. Different how? You notice things, you listen, you don't pretend to care about titles or appearances, you just see people for who they are. Nathan smiled. I think that's how everyone should be treated, he said simply, but not everyone takes the time. Lysara nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest. I like that, she admitted. I like that very much. For the next hour, they talked about simple things. Flowers, the way sunlight moved across the palace walls, small memories from their lives. They laughed quietly at little jokes, shared thoughts they had never voiced before, and slowly a sense of friendship began to grow. Eventually, the soft hum of activity from the palace grew louder. Courtiers were calling for the princess to return. Lysara sighed, knowing their moment together would end. Nathan stood and offered his hand again. Shall we? He asked gently. Lysara took his hand without hesitation. The small act, simple as it was, filled her with courage. She realized that being seen, being noticed, did not need grandeur or ceremony. Sometimes it could begin with a hand, a smile, or a moment of attention. They walked back toward the palace together. The halls were bright and bustling now, but Lysara felt stronger. She had shared a secret part of herself with someone who understood, and it changed her. Before returning to her quarters, Nathan paused. "I hope we can talk again," he said. Lysara looked at him, her heart steady now. I would like that," she replied. As he walked away to rejoin the human delegation, Lysara felt a spark of hope. For the first time, she realized that maybe she did not need to remain invisible. Maybe, just maybe, she could step into the light and find someone who saw her as she truly was. The palace felt different that day. The corridors seemed less suffocating, the voices less intimidating. Lysara's thoughts were no longer full of fear, but of possibilities. She could learn, grow, and perhaps even connect with others in ways she had never imagined. And all of it began with a single hand taken, a single moment shared. Princess Lysara, shy and quiet, walked through the palace with a new sense of courage. She did not yet know what the future held, but she understood one thing clearly. There were people in the galaxy worth trusting, people worth noticing. And sometimes, noticing them in return could change everything. The palace of Violia had always seemed vast and safe to Princess Lysara, with its gleaming towers and softly humming walls. Yet that morning, the familiar halls felt suddenly tense. Courtiers whispered in corners, and attendants hurried along corridors with worried faces. Rumors of a political coup had spread through the palace overnight, a group seeking to overthrow the current leadership and seize control. Lysara felt her stomach tighten. She had spent her life observing others, quietly noting every detail, but she had never imagined that danger could reach so close to her. Today, it had. Meanwhile, Captain Nathan Reyes was already aware of the threat. The human delegation had received alerts about suspicious activity outside the palace, and Nathan's training as a captain had prepared him for emergencies. Unlike the Violians, who relied heavily on protocol and ceremony, Nathan trusted observation, quick thinking, and cooperation. The palace gates shook as the first warning sounded. Alarms blared, red lights flashing across the marble walls. Courtiers screamed, guards shouted orders, and the palace erupted into chaos. Lysara froze in her chambers, unsure of what to do. She had always followed instructions quietly, blending in and avoiding attention. But this was different. A soft knock came at her door. "Princess Lysara," a guard whispered, his voice urgent. "We need to evacuate, it's not safe here." Before she could respond, Nathan appeared, seemingly calm amid the chaos. "Lysara," he said gently, "we need to leave now, come with me." Her heart raced, but she trusted him. She grabbed a small satchel of belongings and followed him down the twisting corridors of the palace. Guards shouted behind them, but Nathan moved with certainty, leading her towards secret passages and hidden doors that she had only read about in palace records. The palace was no longer the familiar place of calm corridors and quiet gardens. Shadows stretched long under the flashing alarms, and distant shouts echoed through the grand halls. Lysara clutched Nathan's hand as they ran. The small touch was comforting, a reminder that she was not alone. They reached a narrow passage that led beneath the palace, a hidden tunnel used for emergencies. The walls were cool and smooth, and the air smelled faintly of stone and damp moss. Nathan held a small light, showing the way through the darkness. Lysara's heart pounded, but she forced herself to keep moving. "Are you all right?" Nathan asked, glancing back at her. I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan smiled softly. "That's normal, but we'll be okay, I promise. Stay close to me." They continued through the twisting tunnels, navigating turns and obstacles that would have been impossible without Nathan's guidance. Lysara realized for the first time that courage did not mean absence of fear. Courage meant moving forward even when the heart trembled. Suddenly, a distant sound echoed through the tunnel, a metallic clang followed by hurried footsteps. Someone was following them. "Quickly," Nathan urged. "We need to move faster. Keep your hand on mine." Lysara tightened her grip, her fear mixing with determination. She had always been shy and cautious, but now she felt a surge of strength she did not know she possessed. She could not let fear paralyze her, not here, not now. The passage opened into a small chamber with another exit leading to a hidden hover transport dock. Nathan checked the area carefully, ensuring it was safe. "This way," he said, guiding her toward the vehicles. Hover transports hovered silently above the ground, glowing faintly with energy fields. Nathan ushered Lysara into one, helping her sit safely as the craft lifted and moved smoothly through the tunnels. The sensation of motion was strange and exhilarating, the walls of the palace slipping away beneath them. As they traveled, Nathan explained the situation. "The coup is trying to take the palace," he said. "They think they can control the leadership. But if we act carefully, we can avoid bloodshed and protect everyone." Lysara listened, absorbing his words. She realized that he did not see her as a delicate princess to be protected. He saw her as someone capable, someone whose knowledge of the palace could help them navigate the crisis. When they reached the outer gardens, the view of the city was startling. Smoke rose in the distance where chaos had erupted, and palace guards were engaged in strategic skirmishes with the attackers. Lysara's heart pounded, but she did not turn away. Nathan stayed beside her, calm and alert, guiding her through the safest paths. They moved together, silent except for necessary instructions, until they found a vantage point overlooking the main gates. From here, they could see the courtyards below and the movements of both the palace defenders and the attackers. Lysara's knowledge of the palace proved invaluable. She pointed out hidden stairways and maintenance corridors that could be used to flank the attackers. Nathan listened carefully, adapting his plan with each suggestion. They were a team, their strengths complementing each other perfectly. "Impressive," Nathan said after a moment. "Most people would panic in this situation, but you see solutions others miss." Lysara felt a flush of pride mixed with disbelief. I've always watched and learned," she admitted. "I never thought it could be useful like this." Nathan smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "It is, and it's making a difference." Hours passed as they guided the palace defenders, communicating quietly and effectively. Lysara began to understand the power of observation, intelligence, and quiet courage. She realized that her shyness was not a weakness, it was a strength when paired with focus and awareness. At one point, an attacker spotted them on the balcony. A shout rang out, and a figure moved toward them with alarming speed. Nathan acted instinctively, pulling Lysara behind a column and signaling her to stay low. He confronted the attacker with calm precision, using his human training to defuse the situation without harm. Lysara watched, awed by his courage and composure. She realized that bravery could be quiet as well as bold, and that protecting others did not always mean fighting. It meant making careful, thoughtful choices. When the immediate danger passed, Nathan turned to her. "You're safe now," he said, his voice steady, "but we need to keep moving." Lysara nodded, trusting him completely. Together, they navigated through hidden passages, keeping to the shadows and avoiding unnecessary conflict. The palace, once a place of calm and routine, had become a labyrinth of tension and strategy. But in the midst of danger, Lysara discovered something she had never felt before, a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose. By late afternoon, the palace defenders had regained control of most areas. The attackers were being driven back, their plans foiled by quick thinking, teamwork, and careful observation. Lysara and Nathan paused on a terrace overlooking the palace gardens, now eerily quiet after the chaos. "You did well," Nathan said, looking at her with respect and admiration. "Without your guidance, we could have lost more ground." Lysara felt a warmth spread through her chest. I never thought I could do something like this," she said softly. "I've always stayed in the background, unnoticed." Nathan shook his head. "Being unnoticed doesn't mean you're powerless. Sometimes the quietest voices have the clearest vision." For a moment they stood in silence, watching the city below. Smoke was clearing, and the first signs of recovery were beginning. Lysara realized that fear could be faced, that danger could be navigated, and that courage could come from unexpected places. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Nathan reached out and lightly took her hand again. Lysara did not pull away. Instead, she felt a deep sense of trust and connection. The day's trials had changed her. She had faced fear, acted bravely, and discovered a strength she had not known she possessed. "You're amazing," Nathan said quietly. "Not because you're a princess, but because of who you are." Lysara smiled, feeling a surge of confidence. I think I understand now," she said softly. "Being noticed, it's not about being in the spotlight. It's about being seen for who you are, even in moments like this." Nathan nodded. "Exactly, and you deserve to be seen." They walked back toward the palace hand in hand, their footsteps quiet but purposeful. The palace corridors were no longer intimidating. They were paths to action, learning, and growth. Lysara felt empowered, knowing that courage and intelligence could change outcomes, that even small acts could have great impact. By the time they reached her chambers, night had fallen. The palace was calm once more, and the immediate danger had passed. Lysara sat by her window, looking out at the glowing city. Nathan stood nearby, watching over her with gentle care. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice steady now, "for everything today." Nathan smiled. "No, thank you. For showing me how much strength can be found in quiet courage." Lysara felt a new sense of purpose. She knew the coming days would bring challenges, but she also knew that with courage, observation, and someone she could trust by her side, she could face them. And for the first time in her life, Princess Lysara felt that being noticed was not something to fear. It was something to embrace, a chance to make a difference, not only for herself but for everyone around her. She glanced at Nathan, feeling a spark of hope. Together they had turned fear into action, danger into understanding. And she knew that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The morning after the palace crisis, Violia felt different. The city's streets were alive with chatter, but there was a sense of relief in the air. The palace guards had regained full control, and the attempted coup had been stopped before it could reach the throne. Yet within the grand halls of the palace, an unusual energy simmered, an energy that Princess Lysara could feel even as she moved quietly along the corridors. For the first time, she was not invisible. Courtiers and attendants looked at her differently, their whispers tinged with surprise and admiration. The news of her role in helping navigate the palace through the crisis had spread quietly but firmly. People who had once ignored her presence now approached her, offering polite bows and words of respect. Lysara felt a strange mixture of pride and discomfort. She had never sought recognition, never desired the attention of others. But she realized that respect, unlike attention, was meaningful. Respect acknowledged her abilities, her courage, and her choices. "Princess Lysara," said a senior minister, bowing deeply as she passed through the main hall, "your guidance saved countless lives yesterday. The council is grateful for your insight." Lysara inclined her head modestly. "I only did what I thought was right," she replied softly. The minister smiled. "Sometimes doing what is right is exactly what is needed." Lysara walked on, her mind racing with thoughts. For years she had felt invisible, a shadow in the grand halls of the palace. But now the weight of recognition was on her shoulders. It was not frightening, it was empowering. She realized that she could use her voice, her intelligence, and her insight to help others, not just herself. Later that morning, Nathan came to her chambers. He had been staying in the palace during the aftermath, assisting with logistics and observing the recovery. His calm presence was comforting, as it had been throughout the crisis. "You did well," Nathan said simply, sitting beside her on the soft cushions of her room. "Everyone is talking about your contribution. You didn't just survive, you helped save your people." Lysara looked at him, feeling a warmth she could not describe. I never thought I could do something so important," she admitted. "I've always been quiet, unnoticed, invisible, and now everyone is seeing me." Nathan reached out, taking her hand gently. "Being seen doesn't mean you have to change who you are. It means others recognize your worth. And that's a good thing, Lysara. You have always had strength. Now it's finally acknowledged." Her heart swelled. Nathan's words were simple, yet they carried truth and understanding. For the first time, she felt that her quiet nature was not a weakness but a gift. She had always observed, learned, and waited. Now she realized that the patience and insight she had cultivated were exactly what had helped her and her people through danger. The palace held a formal meeting that afternoon. Members of the council, senior ministers, and military leaders gathered to discuss security and the recovery plan after the coup attempt. Lysara entered quietly, her posture calm but confident. Nathan accompanied her, standing near the edge of the room, his presence reassuring. As the discussion began, Lysara noticed the subtle glances toward her. Courtiers whispered, their faces a mix of curiosity and admiration. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that her voice mattered now, not just for recognition but for action. When a question arose about hidden corridors and escape routes during the coup, Lysara spoke up. Her voice was soft, yet clear and precise. She explained the palace's secret passages, the routes used to transport personnel safely, and the areas where defense could be strengthened. She shared observations that no one else had considered, and each word carried the authority of someone who had acted decisively when it mattered. The council members listened intently. One by one, they nodded, their expressions turning from polite acknowledgement to genuine respect. They had always seen her as a quiet princess, someone to be shielded from the world's harshness. Now they saw a leader, someone capable of thinking, acting, and guiding in moments of crisis. When the meeting ended, the council formally recognized her contributions. Her name was mentioned with admiration, her observations praised, and her role acknowledged. For the first time, Lysara felt the weight of responsibility, not as a burden but as a call to action. Nathan watched her quietly from the side. He had expected courage from her, but what he saw now was something more. A combination of intelligence, calmness, and quiet determination that inspired those around her. He smiled, proud not only of her abilities, but of the way she carried herself with humility despite the recognition. After the formalities, Lysara and Nathan retreated to the palace gardens once more. The air was calm, and the soft glow of the flowers reflected the peaceful mood she felt inside. They walked slowly along the winding paths, hand in hand, sharing thoughts and reflections. "You've changed," Nathan said gently. "Not because the council recognized you, but because you understand your own strength now," Lysara smiled softly. "I've always had it," she admitted. "I just didn't know it was enough. I didn't realize that being quiet and observant could actually help others." Nathan squeezed her hand gently. "It does, and it always will. You just needed the right moment to see it yourself." They sat by the central fountain, watching the water ripple in the golden light of the twin suns. Lysara felt a calm determination settle within her. She understood that recognition was not something to chase. It was something that came naturally when one acted with courage, intelligence, and care. "You know," Nathan said after a pause, "people often underestimate quiet ones. They think loud voices mean strong voices. But you've proven that sometimes the quietest voices are the strongest." Lysara laughed softly, a sound that felt lighter than it had in years. "I never imagined that being unnoticed could lead to this," she said. "It feels strange but good. I feel like I can actually help people now, not just hide away." Nathan looked at her, his expression serious but kind. "You can, and you will. You've seen danger, acted with courage, and guided others. That is the mark of a true leader." As the day continued, Lysara began to notice small gestures of respect from the palace staff. Guards saluted her politely, servants bowed with genuine acknowledgement, and courtiers spoke to her with sincere interest. She realized that recognition was not about fame or applause. It was about being valued, being respected, and being trusted to act rightly. That evening, as the sun set and the palace lights shimmered, a special ceremony was held to honor those who had contributed to the palace's defense. Lysara was invited to the front, standing beside Nathan, the human who had been by her side through the entire ordeal. The council spoke of bravery, intelligence, and courage. When they mentioned Lysara, the hall fell silent, and the eyes of hundreds of people turned toward her. She felt a flutter of nervousness, but also a surge of pride. She had not sought this moment, yet it felt right. She had earned it through quiet observation, thoughtful action, and courage in the face of fear. When the ceremony ended, Nathan took her hand again, a silent gesture of support and understanding. Lysara realized that being seen was not the same as being alone. Recognition was not a burden, it was an opportunity. And with Nathan by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. That night, Lysara returned to her chambers, reflecting on the events of the past days. She had faced fear, guided others, and discovered strength she had not known she possessed. She had been recognized, respected, and most importantly, seen for who she truly was. As she gazed out of her window at the glowing city, she thought of the possibilities that lay ahead. She understood that her life had changed, not because of titles or ceremonies, but because she had stepped forward, acted with courage, and allowed herself to be seen. Nathan, standing nearby, offered a comforting smile. Lysara knew that with him beside her, she could face any challenge. Together, they had turned fear into action, uncertainty into clarity, and invisibility into recognition. And as the stars began to shine over Violia, Lysara felt a quiet joy in her heart. She had discovered that courage, intelligence, and kindness could earn respect and admiration. She had discovered that being seen was not something to fear. It was a gift. For the first time, Princess Lysara walked not as a shadow in the grand halls, but as a young woman ready to lead, ready to inspire, and ready to embrace her place in the world. And beside her, Nathan remained, a steady presence, a trusted friend, and a reminder that sometimes the right people could help you discover your own strength. The sun rose over Violia with a soft golden glow, reflecting off the silver towers of the palace and casting warm light. Over the city below. For the first time in her life, Princess Lysara felt the morning bring excitement instead of anxiety. The city hummed with life, markets bustled, children laughed in the streets, and citizens went about their daily routines. Yet the palace still held the memory of recent danger, the echoes of fear replaced now by respect, relief, and hope. Lysara moved through the halls with a quiet confidence. Courtiers, servants, and guards greeted her with nods and smiles. They no longer saw her as the shy, invisible princess who lingered in the background. They saw a leader, someone capable of insight, courage, and compassion. For Lysara, it was a new sensation, a combination of pride, responsibility, and determination. Nathan walked beside her, calm and steady, his human presence grounding her. Together, they moved through the palace, visiting various departments and speaking to those who had assisted during the recent crisis. Their partnership had become symbolic, showing unity between human ingenuity and Viorlian tradition. "The city has recovered well," Nathan remarked as they walked along a terrace overlooking the streets. "Your people are resilient, Lysara, and they respect you for it." Lysara smiled softly. "It feels different being noticed," she admitted, "but not in a way that makes me uncomfortable. I feel valued, and that is a wonderful feeling." Nathan squeezed her hand lightly. "It is, and it's well-deserved." That afternoon, the palace council convened to discuss the next steps. Leaders, diplomats, and military advisors gathered to ensure the city's safety and strengthen alliances. Lysara and Nathan attended together, their presence inspiring confidence among all attendees. When a discussion arose about improving communication between districts and sharing resources efficiently, Lysara spoke up. Her suggestions were practical and thoughtful, drawn from careful observation and her understanding of both the city and its people. Nathan watched with admiration as she articulated her ideas, combining clarity with empathy, showing awareness of everyone's needs. "Excellent point, Princess," said one of the senior ministers. "Your insight has already proven invaluable. With your guidance, the city can thrive more efficiently." Lysara nodded, humbled by the acknowledgement but determined to continue contributing. She understood that being noticed was not about praise, it was about responsibility. Recognition came with the chance to make a real difference. After the council meeting, Lysara and Nathan walked into the palace gardens, which had recovered from the chaos of the recent conflict. The soft glow of flowers and the gentle hum of the air-filled gardens brought peace to both of them. Citizens who had come to admire the palace noticed them together, whispering among themselves about the partnership of the young princess and the human envoy. "This place," Nathan said, looking around, "feels alive again, and I can see why you love it." "I do," Lysara agreed, her eyes soft. "It's peaceful, inspiring. It reminds me that even after chaos, life continues, and we can make it better if we try." They strolled along the winding paths, hand in hand, sharing stories and dreams. Nathan spoke of Earth, its oceans, forests, mountains, and bustling cities. Lysara shared memories of Violia, its hidden corners, the traditions she cherished, and the small joys often overlooked. Through their conversation, they discovered that while their worlds were different, their values were similar: courage, empathy, and hope. As the day drew on, a ceremony was announced in the palace courtyard. Citizens, diplomats, and officials gathered to celebrate the recovery and honor those who had contributed to protecting the city. Lysara and Nathan were invited to stand at the front, their presence symbolic of the strength found in unity. The palace speaker addressed the crowd. "Today, we honor not only the bravery of our guards and citizens, but also the insight and courage of Princess Lysara. Her quiet strength guided us through danger and reminded us that intelligence and observation can be as powerful as any weapon. We also recognize Captain Nathan Reyes, whose calm leadership and respect for our people strengthened our efforts." The crowd erupted in applause. Lysara's heart raced. She had never imagined standing before so many people, receiving recognition not just for her title but for her actions. Nathan's hand remained steady in hers, and she drew strength from his presence. After the ceremony, citizens approached to offer thanks, admiration, and respect. Some had seen her bravery during the recent conflict, others had heard of her guidance. Each gesture reinforced the realization that courage, kindness, and insight could inspire others more than any display of power or status. Lysara and Nathan moved through the crowd, speaking with people, listening to their concerns, and offering reassurance. For Lysara, it was a moment of growth. She was no longer the invisible princess hiding in shadows. She was a figure of guidance, someone capable of leading and inspiring her people. As evening fell, the palace gardens glowed under the soft light of floating lanterns. Lysara and Nathan found a quiet bench beneath a flowering tree, the hum of the city below mingling with the gentle sounds of the garden. "You've changed," Nathan said softly, his gaze fixed on her. "Not because people are noticing you, but because you've discovered your own strength." Lysara smiled, feeling warmth and courage welling within her. "I've learned that being seen is not the same as being exposed," she said. "It's a chance to help, to guide, to make a difference." Nathan nodded. "Exactly. And with your vision and compassion, you can inspire more than just your people. You can set an example for others, showing that courage and kindness are powerful forces." She looked at him, her heart full of trust. "And you helped me see it," she said softly. "I never thought someone could understand me so completely." Nathan squeezed her hand gently. "It's easy when someone is worth understanding." The night deepened, and stars shimmered above the palace. Lysara felt a sense of peace she had never known. She realized that true leadership was not about power or control. It was about empathy, courage, and the willingness to act when it mattered. Nathan's presence reminded her that companionship, respect, and trust could strengthen even the strongest leaders. Over the following days, Lysara began walking openly among her people, visiting districts, observing, and listening. Citizens who had once ignored her now sought her advice and guidance. She spoke with humility and care, offering insight while empowering others to act. Nathan accompanied her, always supportive, always observing, but never overshadowing her presence. Together, they formed a partnership built on mutual respect, understanding, and shared values. Lysara noticed small changes across the city. People were kinder to one another, more aware of their surroundings, and inspired to act with empathy and courage. Her example encouraged others to recognize strength in quiet observation, bravery in thoughtful action, and leadership in service rather than self-interest. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Lysara paused near a fountain reflecting the twin moons. "Do you see it?" she asked Nathan. "All the change, it's happening because people finally see what matters. Kindness, courage, insight, these are what shape the future." Nathan smiled, watching her with admiration. "Yes, and it started with you. You took the first step, even when you thought no one was watching." Lysara's eyes softened. "And you were there, you helped me believe I could take that step." Nathan's hand found hers again, a gentle, reassuring grip. "We've learned together," he said simply. "And together we can continue to make a difference." As the twin moons rose higher in the sky, casting soft, silver light across the gardens, Lysara realized that her journey had changed her completely. She had gone from a shy, invisible princess to a confident leader, seen and respected by her people. She had faced danger, discovered strength, and built a bond of trust and companionship with Nathan that transcended worlds. In the days that followed, the palace became a symbol of hope and unity. Virelians and humans collaborated, learning from each other, sharing knowledge, and building stronger ties. Lysara's quiet intelligence and courage inspired citizens to value observation, empathy, and thoughtful action. Nathan's steady guidance showed that respect and understanding could bridge worlds. And through it all, Lysara walked openly, no longer hiding in shadows. She had learned that being noticed was not about fame or applause. It was about being seen, valued, and trusted. With Nathan by her side, she felt ready to face any challenge, confident in her abilities, and aware that true leadership came from courage, kindness, and the willingness to act. One evening, as they watched the city glow under the light of lanterns and moons, Lysara spoke softly. "I never imagined that taking small steps, noticing people, being noticed, could lead to something so big." Nathan nodded. "It's the small steps that matter most." One hand held, one kind word, one brave choice, they ripple outward and change everything. Lysara looked at him, her heart full of hope and determination. "Then let's continue," she said. "Let's continue to help, to guide, and to inspire together." Nathan smiled, gently squeezing her hand. "Together," he agreed. And so Princess Lysara, once shy and unseen, became a symbol of courage, insight, and compassion. Beside her, Nathan remained, a friend, ally, and partner. Together, they led not with force, but with understanding, not with fear, but with courage, not with silence, but with voice. Violia flourished under their example, proving that even the smallest acts of kindness and courage could spark great change. And in the heart of the palace, amidst gardens and towers, a shy princess had found her place, seen, respected, and ready to face the future. The twin moons reflected on the palace walls, and Lysara knew that a new era had begun, not just for her, but for everyone who believed in the power of courage, empathy, and hope.